My name is Lee, and I'm a Cherokee person. I was born for the Wolf Clan, and my name in my language is Say Nu Sti, which I received in a Cherokee roundhouse. Here in BC, they have long houses. We have a 7-sided roundhouse for our 7 clans. And in the roundhouse, I received my name, which kind of means messenger. It can also mean someone that brings a message while they're singing, and I am a singer. And it also means someone that shows up in your dreams. It could happen. I'd like to acknowledge the territory and being involved in this Moose Hide campaign. I'm going to talk about fasting today, and I want to mention a couple other things about myself that my favorite subject. I'm a recovering alcoholic, former drug abuser, and last November 10th I celebrated 50 years of sobriety, one day at a time in the program. And I really love the Moose Hide campaign because I believe in nonviolence. I grew up in the violence. I witnessed the violence. I was in the room with the violence. As a young person, I was in the room when men lost their lives. In the room when death occurred. I remember at age 5 or 6, standing in my house, thinking, man, I don't like this. This is not me. I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to initiate violence. And I kept that pledge to myself my whole life. The only time I've been in fights is when I had to defend myself. And another reason I like this program is I lost my oldest daughter to violence. I lost my 21-year-old daughter to the violence of a 24-year-old white male who came on the reservation in the States and took my daughter's life because he was angry. Didn't know my daughter at all. Just an angry man. And that's one of the reasons why I got up at 6 o'clock yesterday and began the long drive from Vernon, British Columbia down here because I believe in this program. And I'm here today to talk about fasting. And my experiences with fasting begin with my grandfather's death in 1971. After my grandfather passed away, who I lived with when I was a boy, my dad was in the World War II and in Korea. So while my dad was in the war, I lived with my grandparents. When my grandfather died, I started having a tormenting nightmare. This was the strongest dream I've ever had. People in the house knew when I'd had it. They could feel it. Believe it or not, the neighbors could feel it. This was a powerful dream. It was disturbing the village. People said, you need to do something. And I'd become the student of an elder, a sweat house elder, and at that time in my life. And I went to the elder, and we had a ceremony on the dream. I said, well, you know, what does this dream mean? He said, I don't know. I don't know what your dream means, but I think you should fast. I said, well, what's that? You know, like I was a young man, I wasn't sure what that was about. He said, we'll take you up in the mountains for 4 days. We'll stake your foot to a peg and put it in the ground, and you cannot take it out till I come get you. You'll be up there 4 days and 4 nights. That seemed a little extreme to me at that moment. I didn't say anything, but I had the dream again. I knew I had to do it. It was just tormenting. So I went up on the mountain for the first time. I had the dream again. It might make my life easier if I could share the dream with especially people that are close to me, but it's one of those dreams you can't share, except I share it with the elders. I believe in sharing dreams and that kind of thing, but there's some that are very personal to yourself. So I came down and went to the sweat with the elder after the fast, and I told him that the dream had changed into a good dream. It was no longer a nightmare, it was a nice dream. It was a good dream. He said, oh, I think you should fast for 10 more years. We put you up every year for 9 more years, you'll fast 10 times. And each year we'll add a couple days. So in the 10th year, I fasted 20 days, 16 days with 12 days with no water or no food, 4 days on the mountain again with no water and no food, and then 4 days of broth and foods. And I learned about fasting. I have a lot of education, but I have to say, I think I learned more sitting on the mountain fasting than in any other way I've learned in life. You learn a lot just sitting there. And so there's two kinds of fasting that we have, and before I begin, I want to say that, there's cultural universals and there's cultural specifics. Today I'm just talking about universals. I mean, fasting is a cultural universal. People all over the world fast for various reasons. In our ways, we have two kinds of fasting. We have the spiritual fast, which I was just talking about, and then we have the healing fast, to heal yourself, to heal your body. And it's the spiritual fasting, is you go up, as I mentioned. One of the places that came to me to fast in my life after I completed the 10 years with my elders, I also went to Bear Butte, South Dakota, and fasted where Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull fasted on Bear Butte, the sacred mountain outside of Sturgis, South Dakota. It's a beautiful place. Our people have been fasting there people from tribes from all over have been coming there for maybe thousands of years. There's so many places on the mountain where there's 4 trees, and that's called an altar. You can sit in that place. And you put tobacco ties around you. They gave me this tobacco tie this morning. It's in my vest. A little tobacco tie. There was times sitting on the mountain, those little tobacco ties was the only thing that separated me from the grizzly bears going by, That's a very powerful thing, the tobacco. It's a protector. It's the chief medicine, we say. Tobacco is a chief medicine, a great healer. Like a lot of powerful medicines, when it's misused, it brings a great illness. Anyway, when I went up on Bear Butte, and I'd like to sit in one of those altars, you have two choices, basically. You can sit on the edge of the mountain where you have to deal with the wind for 4 days, or you can sit in a more sheltered place where you have to deal with mosquitoes for 4 days. I usually chose the wind. And you're sitting there, and I would get up and I'd walk about 10 feet from the altar, and I'd brush off my pants, and a little bit of dust would come off, and I know I made that indentation where people have been sitting for thousands of years, and I was just the next guy in line. And the dust on my pants made it just a little bit deeper. My little contribute to that indentation in that altar on the mountain. Spiritual fasting. And I'll come back to it towards the end of the talk, but one of the reasons why we fast spiritually is to find out who we are, to find out why we were born, to find out what our gift is, gift that we have in life. Then there's also healing fasting. Healing fasting is when you're allowing your stomach to be empty so your body can heal. So they say if you take a college class and you remember one thing 15 years later, that was a good class. And so if you remember one thing 15 years after this talk, here's one of the good sentences for today. When there's food in your stomach, the primary energy of your body goes to digesting the food. But when your stomach is empty, the primary energy of your body goes to healing your body. So every night, when we go to sleep, our stomach empties, we're in our healing time. As soon as your stomach is empty, your body wisdom says to itself, what's happening in my kidneys? What's happening in my liver? Oh, look, there's a cancer cell, better take care of that. And your body starts to heal. So that's why it's good to, and I know, growing up in a home where there was malnutrition and difficulty, and one of the things I said to myself when I was a young man, I said, boy, when I get money, I'm going to eat. And I did. I gained a lot of weight. Between 34 and 44, I gained 100 pounds because I was eating. But that's not a good thing to do. I used to really love eating just before I go to sleep. I don't do that now because when you get older, the healing time is even more important. I give my body the healing time, so I try not to eat too much right before bed. You go to sleep. Let's say you sleep 8 hours. probably going to take 3 or 4 for your stomach to empty. That means you're getting 4 hours healing time out of 24 hours in the day. You can, if you have an illness, extend that healing time. My partner, my wife, just went through a number of months where she didn't eat. She didn't eat 16 hours a day. So she ate dinner at 6 o'clock and then didn't eat for 16 hours after that. So she was, to do a healing, to seek healing, which was achieved, by the way. It's a healing thing. Our stomachs are like a stove. I grew up in a house with one of those old tin wood stoves. You guys ever have one of those? What happens if you put too much wood in? The stove starts belching. Smokes come out, pretty soon there's smoke in the living room, and you gotta open the door because it wants enough air. It's the same with your stomach. Your stomach needs air to help digest the food. So when you eat, the best situation is if your stomach has about 1/3 food, 1/3 water, 1/3 air. That means if you eat till you're totally stuffed, it's going to be hard for the stomach to digest. It's hard for the food to go into the roots of your being, which is your intestines. I was really amazed. I was at UBC one time. I was in a coffee house, and I just started up a conversation with some guy I didn't know at the next table who happened to be in the faculty of genetics. And you think you would know this. It's one of these things you think you should know, especially saying all my relations most of my life. He said an interesting thing. It was so interesting, I asked him to repeat it twice. He said, we share 80% DNA with a tree. We share 80% DNA with trees. If I was to tweak your DNA 20%, you'd be a tree. And your intestines would be the roots. And the health of a tree is determined by its roots. So your intestines are very important. Your lungs would be the leaves. We breathe out carbon dioxide. Trees breathe that in. They breathe out oxygen. We breathe in oxygen. We have a strong relationship with trees. And it's important that the stomach is not stuffed. And I know we all like to do it. Like Thanksgiving, you have a family dinner, and especially when you're home. My mother's passed on now, but when you're home at your mother's house, and how many times you're going to get to eat your mother's food, so you just eat everything you can. You're totally stuffed, and it feels good, but it's not the healthiest thing to do. On a daily basis, try not to eat until you're totally stuffed. Try to stop a little bit and give your stomach a chance to digest the food properly, and so that when you go to sleep, your body can clean. As soon as you enter the fasting of your sleeping time, your body starts to clean itself. And you can see the evidence of that when you wake up and you stick your tongue out. See how much stuff is on your tongue. There's a lot of stuff on your tongue in the morning. That means that your body needs to be cleaned, which is one of the purposes of fasting. So intermittent fasting 1 day a week, is a healthy thing to do. It gives your body a chance to clean. Your body's gathered all that stuff up. It's cleaned your kidneys, it's cleaned your liver, it's cleaned your lungs. All of that sitting between here and here, through your body and your tongue, throughout your system. I was driving into Vernon one time with my girls, and I said, my girls, maybe one of the healthiest things, maybe the one most healthiest fact I can give you from our culture is this. When you wake up in the morning, drink water. When you have that stuff is all sitting there, drink water. The power of water to clean your body. Last thing at night, give your body some water to work with. To help in the cleaning during your fasting during the night before you break the fast with breakfast. Imagine if we swept this floor here. It looks pretty clean, but there's something laying over there. Let's say we swept it, but we just left it here in a pile. And the next day, people would come and walk on stage and be spread out. Next day, we sweep it again, but we just leave it. The pile would be a little bigger. Imagine if we did that for 40 years. You have a lot of stuff here. Same with your system if you're not drinking water in the morning and getting that stuff out. It builds up. If you just eat, including coffee or tea, that don't count. It's got to be water. Coffee and tea would probably help a little bit, but water is the best. And then you give that to your body and allow yourself to wash it out. And so this is a physical benefit of fasting. When you're fasting, it's your healing time. Emotionally, fasting helps clear the emotions. Some of the emotions that the sister spoke of here this morning: grief, anger, fear. Working at Round Lake Treatment Center, I moved to British Columbia in 1979 to help develop the first native healing center in the province. Before Round Lake, there was no native healing center. If you were an alcoholic or a drug addict in BC, you'd have to go to a non-native center. The success rate was very low. My bio is 5 years old, because it's 45 years now. We just celebrated our 45th anniversary. In the last 45 years, I've had a chance to sit down with many of the 14,000 people and families that have come to Round Lake for healing. And I'm glad that I had my Sweathouse teacher. And I'm glad that, little advertisement, weekend of June 6th is the Okanagan Indian Band of Powwow. Beautiful place, Kamasket, Okanagan Lake, about 4 miles from our house. Beautiful powwow. It's more of a traditional powwow, no contest, but there's a lot of specials with giveaways. And beautiful setting, camping. And the grandson of my teacher is going to be the speaker, the powwow MC this year. I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't seen him in 40 years probably. We had some of his teachings at Round Lake, and one of the things he said is every illness comes from a blockage in the circulation of our being, either physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. Blockage on the physical level, of course, is a blood clot. That's very dangerous. You can see how dangerous a blood clot is. If it makes its way to your heart, it could be the end of you. But there's also blockages in the heart that our sister spoke about this morning: the grief, the anger, the fear, the jealousy, the rage. Many people in my own family, being a family of alcoholics and drug addicts, we don't have anger. We got everyday and rage. It just goes straight to rage. Rageaholics. And I'm glad that we mentioned that, and both speakers touched on one of the topics that's very dear to me, is regaining our emotional maturity as human beings. As we say at Round Lake, becoming parents again, becoming grandparents again. I got a new title now. I'm a great-grandfather, becoming great-grandparents again, becoming children again, nieces and nephews, resuming the roles, arising to maturity, or emotional maturity. And one of the things that can help with that is healing the hurt that's in our heart area and our mind area. Fasting helps with that. I don't care how angry you are. If you fast for 24 hours, stop eating food, you'll be less angry. The fasting will subside the emotions and help them to heal, help to remove the blockages. Blockage in the heart can cause an illness. My teacher again said the blockage, essentially we have the four bodies of mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. Your blockage can be in your heart, but the disease can come in the body or in the mind. There's a lot of talk these days about mental health, but from my perspective, a lot of it's not mental health, it's emotional health. It's emotional health crisis that we have. There is a mental health crisis too, but there's also within that an emotional health crisis. In my writings, I have said, and I really strongly believe this, that the heart is the root of the mind, and the mind is the blossoming of the heart. And in my study for my doctorate in emotional education, I learned that you can feel without thinking, but you cannot think without feeling. Feeling precedes thought, both in the structures of the brain and in the way that things happen every day. The point here is that fasting can be very healing for our angers, for our griefs, for our sorrow. It can be very healing in the emotional realm as well as the physical realm, and also in the mental realm. There again, we have the angers, we have the fears, we have the hatreds. Hate is on the rise. We live in a society, unfortunately, where hatred is increasing. And I think that's a sad thing. And but one of the ways we can heal that, and the biggest thing I can do for it is to heal myself and to lessen what's in myself and try to get over the multi-generational trauma that I have experienced. The other day, not too long ago, there was a really loud sound and I jerked like that. I was sitting with the guy talking, we were having coffee, and something happened. I said, I'm sorry, that's my post-traumatic stress from the war. He said, what war? I said, the war of my childhood. The war of my dad. My dad was in World War II in Korea. He was in the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir. He's one of the 3 survivors in his unit. 997 men died, 3 lived. He was one of the 3 that lived. And that's post-traumatic stress. 5 days and nights, hand-to-hand combat. And, I had that same stress that he had. Fasting can soothe the emotions or blockages in the heart area. It can heal the sorrow and the anger that's in our minds. It helps to open the door of the mind, open the door of the heart to inspiration, to healing, to I forgot the second page of my talk. Where is it? Okay. Mentally and spiritually, fasting is very important for our spiritual development. And because it is a way we seek to find our gift. Each of us are born with something. As my Sweat House teacher said, no one comes to this world with nothing. Everybody comes with something, and we call that something the gift. You are my gifts. You were born for me. I was born for you. I am your gift. No one's born an enemy, but everyone is born a gift. We are each other's gifts. There's 8 billion gifts on the world right now. You think it'd be a better place? Okay, this is a tough room. We seek our gift, and here's an important thing. Your gift that you carry within yourself will never yell at you. Your gift only whispers. And that's why when we fast, we seek a quiet place. We go up into the mountain. We seek quiet, so when it whispers, we can hear it. It doesn't yell. But when you're ready, it will start to speak to you, and you can find out perhaps what your gift is. So I want to share a dream about that. I had a dream in accordance with my name. I had a dream where I was in a strange town. It was kind of cold and I was kind of hungry. And in the dream, I went into this restaurant, and my waitress came up. My waitress was a Native woman. She's about 7 months pregnant. I said to her in a dream, do you have those big bowls of wonton soup, the kind that's a meal in itself? She said, oh, yes, sir, we have those. I said, that's what I want. I want a bowl of wonton soup. But she never brought my soup. In the dream, she walked by me three times. Hey, how about my soup? Oh, yes, sir. I'll check on that for you. I'll ask the cook. But she never did bring me my soup, and I got upset in the dream, and I left, and I started walking down the sidewalk, and I guess an ancestor, an elder, that sometimes comes in my dreams and walks by me and starts talking. I never get to turn and see him. I asked one of the elders I sang with, when I was singing at the drum and the powwows for many, many years. the one elder I sang with for about 40 years, and I learned he knew a lot about dreams. I asked him about this. I said, why can't I turn and see that guy? He said, oh, you don't want to see him. He said, Lee, if you ever turn and see him in your dream, no, you only have a couple days left. Your time's up. Well, in this dream, I didn't see him. This dream was in the 1970s. He started talking. He said, hey, Lee, he said, didn't you notice? Your waitress was a Native woman. He said, she's going to have a little girl. This was before the gender reveal parties. He said, this little girl will have a strong gift in the old way. That's a nice sentence. There's a lot of children being born like that now. Strong gifts are coming, returning to us, to the children. And then he said, but her mother doesn't believe in these things, so she won't get the child any training for their gift. And like a lot of children don't get training, the training will come in a hard way. It will come through childhood sickness or childhood accident, alcohol and drug addiction, or by going to prison. He said, these are how our people are being trained now. The very last thing he said was, can't you guys down there on the earth do something better for the children than what's happening now? Several years after this dream, I had the vacation from hell, I call it. I was still living in Seattle before I moved to Round Lake. Decided to go out to a place called Orcas Island to have a little retreat for myself. There's a nice resort there. They called me to the reservation. I reconfirmed it the day I was heading out there. But when I got there, they said I didn't have a reservation. They had never heard of me. And not only that, but they were totally full and I couldn't stay there. So I argued, but I had to catch the ferry back to the mainland. So I thought, well, I'll stay on the beach. But I couldn't get a place on the beach. And I went to the next town. There was a little town. When I came off I-5 early that morning, I went through this little town and I said to myself, I'm glad I'm not staying here. And that's where I was at the end of the day. The whole day went by and I was kind of cold. I was kind of hungry. I saw this Chinese restaurant. I think I'd get something to eat. And I went into the restaurant. My waitress came up. My waitress was a Native woman. She was about 7 months pregnant. And I thought to myself, I'm in the dream. I remember this dream. I had it 2 or 3 years ago. I'll order soup. So I said to her in real life, do you have those big bowls of soup? Kind of like a meal in itself? She said, oh, yes, sir, we have those. I said, that's what I want. But I want number 1, too. I want the sweet and sour and the fried rice. Oh, sir, she said, that's a lot to eat. I said, I'll eat everything you bring me. Because I knew from the dream that she would not bring my soup. So I enjoyed the sweet and sour and the fried rice. You got to walk the spiritual path with practical feet. And I just want to share with you, why did I have that dream? The elder said it. I guarantee you, my grandpa that I lived with when I was young used to say, he said, grandson, you got to know what you know for sure. You got to know what you know for sure. He said, human beings don't know much for sure. People think one thing this week and they think another thing next week. Cholesterol is bad, now it's good. Scientific theories change. Really, you come down and think about it, there's not really a whole lot we know for absolute sure. But one thing I know for sure is that she had the dream first. She had the dream, but she couldn't catch it. Dreams are hard to catch sometimes. They fade very fast. And the other thing I know, and when I'm mentioning this in relation to fasting and fasting as a way of finding your gift over time, is that everything you need to know about your gift is in your dreams. If you're thinking right now, I wonder what my gift is. Clients at Round Lake often ask me, well, how will I know something's my gift? So, well, there's two things for sure. It makes you feel good. If you're doing something and you're miserable, it's not your gift. The ancestors aren't going to give you a gift that makes you miserable. You feel an unusual joy when you're doing your gift. And the other thing is that time shifts. And I don't think it's good in the culture to directly talk about your gifts, but I am a potter. I make pots. I've been making pots that also came to me through dreams. Sometimes I go in my studio, it's 8 in the morning, bam, it's 5 in the afternoon. There's no time. Time shifts. Even when you're in the presence of somebody who has a strong gift and their gift is in effect, time can shift for you, because time in the spirit world is different than this world, and the gift is from the spirit world. So that's 2 ways that you know that something is your gift. That's making you unhappy, it's not your gift. Everything you need to know about your life is in your dreams if you pay attention to them. And sometimes when you're fasting on the mountain, or even if you're just fasting for health, you'll fall asleep, you'll have a little stronger dreams because you're fasting. It can make your dreams stronger. It's a very important thing. So there's a lot of good reasons for fasting. The day we're fasting for a purpose. As Michael was a great speaker, to end violence against women. As I mentioned, I lost a daughter to violence. I have 3 more daughters that I'm concerned about all the time. The good news on that story is that when she passed on, she had a little boy, who was 1 year old at the time, who's now a man who just had a boy who's my great-grandson. So life goes on. But when my daughter passed, it altered my life in ways I can't even put words to. My life as Lee Brown came to an end. I'm somebody else now, truly mean that. It's my sweat house teacher called it, and he said, everybody that's on a spiritual path of some kind comes to a time when they're crushed. And when my daughter passed on, I knew that was my crushing. And my sweat house teacher had warned me. He said, when you come to the time of your crushing, stay down. Don't get up and try to be yourself again, or be who you were before. Let it go. Just let it go. So my crushing was 7 years. It was 7 years before it was over. The different things that happened in my life. Stage 4 cancer diagnosis, maybe only 2 months to live. And a number of other things, marriage problems. My marriage fell apart. But the initial thing was the death of my daughter. And it took 7 years. And during that time, I almost lost my sobriety. So I'm thinking, maybe I should start drinking again. I didn't have that many problems when I was drinking. This is the bad thinking that comes to your mind. But instead, I decided to go back to school, do something, try to put my thoughts down, especially with the cancer diagnosis. I thought maybe I was not going to make it much longer, so I wanted to get some stuff down on paper. And at the end of my PhD, right when I did my defense of my thesis, I was undergoing chemotherapy at the same time. And but then I went on living, and I'm really grateful for that. I got to tell you, every morning when I get up, I am grateful. I had an uncle in Oklahoma that was a ceremonial man. He was all he did in life was ceremony. I wouldn't say I don't mean all in a bad way. I mean, what he did was ceremony. He was a ceremonial guy. And he said, sometimes people think they're powerful, but no one's powerful enough to guarantee you that they'll wake up tomorrow morning. And so when I wake up in the morning, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I am alive. I really appreciate it. I appreciate life. So we're fasting for a purpose. We're putting our minds and our hearts together. I want to thank each and every person that's here, and I want to thank each and every person that's fasting. I want to thank each and every person that is the kind of person that believes in ending violence against women. We can make changes. Like Michael said, we can change things individually, and we can do something different. Well, I think I have another half an hour, and so I'm going to open it up to questions. Does anybody have any questions about fasting? Or I have another little segment, but I'll do some questions before I get to the ending segment. Okay, question over here, and then here.
What does it mean when you don't remember your dreams, you don't have dreams?
Okay, dreams. Okay. It's interesting. everybody has dreams. Everybody dreams a number of times every night. And when you're dreaming, your eyes are moving, you know. And when I was a boy, I was, into horses. I was in a couple of rodeos. I was, in a family that's heavily related to horses. One time I was up in the mountains. We were looking for a calf or something with this elder, and we were riding our horses, and we got up and we stopped to rest, and his horse fell asleep, and the eyes started moving. And he said, "Hey, look, Lee, my horse is dreaming." I remember as a little boy thinking, what does a horse dream about? So he did this with cats. When their eyes were moving, they woke them up. On the seventh day, they all died. So thanks to you for your question, and because of your question, I'm going to share this as another reading, one of the major sentences of my life. The energy of your life is your dreams. Dreams are the energy of your life. Want more energy? Pay more attention to your dreams. Do a journal. But what if you can't remember your dreams? I was teaching a class one time over at the University of Lethbridge one summer, one of the summer programs. A lot of my students were from the Blood Reserve that summer, and there was one woman, she said she hadn't remembered her dreams since she was a young girl. She said, "How can I remember my dreams?" I said, "Well, get a dream journal." I said, "How can I get a dream journal if I don't remember my dreams?" Well, when you wake up, just write down the feeling. Because dreams leave a feeling. If you can't remember the dream, you'll definitely be able to feel the feeling. And within 3 days, her dreams were coming back. And if you believe it, I do. I believe that, again, from my elder I mentioned before, I sang with, he said, dreaming on the highest level is spiritual experience. And we dream for many reasons. We have some dreams because we ate too much spaghetti for dinner. We have message dreams, we have problem-solving dreams, we have dreams just working out the contents of the day. But on the highest level, dreams come directly from our ancestors. This is what I believe. I know different people believe different things, but I'll share with you what I believe. I believe that some of our dreams are given us by our ancestors and messages that we need for our life. So if you pay attention to them, maybe just write down the feeling, try to remember them. I know even this week I had a dream, and I thought it was a good one, and I wanted to tell my wife, but within seconds it was gone. They fade rapidly. That helpful?
Yeah.
When my dad was in Korea, dreams are the energy of life. And he was, I mentioned, a 5-day battle. He was running from the enemy, then he'd have to engage in a hand-to-hand combat. And one time when we were going over that stuff, because he had applied for a disability when he was an older man, and so we had to record everything. And he said, son, I think when I was running, because he, as far as he knew, he didn't sleep for 5 days and nights. He was fighting day and night, 5 days and nights, hand-to-hand combat. He said, I think when I was running, I was dreaming, even though he was awake. And I think that might be what pulled him through, because dreams are the energy of life. So maybe the dreams made the difference. Good to see you again this year. Thanks for that little tobacco patch I remember you gave me last year. I use that.
I did a Hamwaichia a long time ago now, and I did 4 of them. And when I was sitting on the mountain, you're talking about your mountain was windy, mine was Mount Washington, and it was cold. There were mosquitoes.
Yeah.
There were mosquitoes.
Yeah.
On my time on the mountain, when you're sitting out there, when it's just you and it's just the creator, you start to appreciate things a little bit differently. I was wondering if you could share with us some of the things you learned while you were on the mountain, some of the things you took away that you brought back to us as a community.
The main thing, I think, what usually happened for me was I called it, when I was fasting, which I fasted for maybe about 30 years or so, I called it the assignment for the year. Like most years I came away thinking, or hearing or having a dream or something, or just picking up on something. For instance, one year it was humility. I was fasting, and I was sitting there, and I just heard my grandfather's voice say, humility, humility. Boy, by the end of the year I knew I didn't have it. I got so many lessons in humility that year. You know, I think humility is a great achievement. You know, it's a great achievement. I wish I was a more humble person. You know, but every year there seemed to be something that would, you know, be the lesson for the year. But I think a desire for purity, you know, desire, and I know people put that down a lot. If you come from a place of, you know, violence and drinking and fighting, and you start talking to somebody about purity, they think you're crazy. But to try to purify ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And one thing is that you appreciate food. I mean, you appreciate good food because you've spent 4 days or more fasting. You appreciate good food and trying to purify your physical being. And wanting to be a good parent. You know, I wanted to be a good parent. I wanted to have children that were helpers and healers, helpers and, you know, or healers of humanity who brought healing and didn't bring sickness or didn't bring violence. And I told my children one day, we were talking, and I said, you know, my girls, the greatest thing you can have is your path of service to others. That's the greatest thing you can find in life, is your path of service to others. And the greatest path of service to others that you can have is the one in which you use your gift. If people get that, they're very lucky, you know. And a path of service which helps people, you know, towards, you know, blessing and healing, help others. And to not raise children who are into violence. And I've seen members of my own family, you know, members of my own family think I'm a total nut. You gotta be tough. You gotta be the toughest guy in this community. Hey, I punched somebody out. Oh, good, that's a good job, son. You punched him out? Yeah, we're the toughest family around here. And I've heard those words, exactly. That's what I didn't want. I don't want that. I told my relative, when he told his son that, I said, you're gonna grow old. You know, you're gonna grow old, and that boy that you're raising to be a violent man, you know, he might be violent to you when you get old. You won't be so tough. You should be careful with that. You know, raise a child that's a benefit to others, a blessing to others. Any other questions? Okay, right here, first and then you.
So in my culture, there is something we call haha.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering what your thoughts on, so this is when someone puts you acid and you're in a spiritual place, because of that veil, you're very close to the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been coming to me quite a bit. And I know, when you've been through it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like lately, one of my things is to help people through that. And it's a gift when you've been through it, because it teaches you to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
Something in the beginning. What is your advice on that? How you can help people through that? Because it's such a delicate time for people. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on
Because that's a good example of a cultural specific, you know. When I was in the Indian dorm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and one of my dorm mates was a young Navajo man. We were talking, we liked to stay up at night talking, and one night he started talking about how when he was a younger boy out on the Navajo reservation, you know, where there's not many people, he got sick. He was in his hogan, the family hogan, and people started showing up and stood with him until he got well. And that day he shared a sentence with me. It kind of became a foundation of my whole life. He said, our presence with each other is our healing. You know, one thing we have, each of us in this room we have a presence. We can develop that presence, but even if we haven't developed it, we still have it. We can be there. We can be present, you know. And sometimes that's most of what people need, is they just need someone to be there. And we can give them our time. That's a great gift. time. I was walking across the University of British Columbia one day and I saw a student crying. Somebody I thought, pretty sure was a foreign student, probably lonely. I sat down on the park bench. I didn't want to disturb their crying, but in my mind I said to them, I'll give you some time. I'll sit here with you. You know, I had about a half hour. I don't know if that person was ever aware of me there or not. And in a half hour I said, well, I got to go. I got a meeting, but, you know, keep on letting your tears out. You know, we can be present. We can give people our time. And beyond that, we can develop gifts, which it sounds like you've been doing, be acknowledging and aware of what. When my daughter was killed, I started just walking my little place there in Vernon, not too far from Round Lake, on the hillside on the west side of Highway 97 as it comes down, goes past Round Lake from between Kamloops and Vernon. And I would just go out in the woods and collect some wood and just build a fire, and I was doing that. I've been doing that for a while. And one of the elders from the reserve, Vernon Reserve, came one day. His name was Wally Lewis. And he just came, he's walking through the woods, and I guess he was looking for me, and he sat with me, and we had about 6 hours of silence. You know, he just sat with me. It was nice. At the end of that time, he said, Lee, he said, you're really feeling grief. You know, if you allow yourself to feel that, you've got the greatest grief you've ever had. If you allow yourself to feel that, all your emotions will expand. And then Wally said something that, he said, I'm going to say something that might make you mad. Don't punch me. And Wally was actually a boxer, so not much chance I'm going to punch him. Even though he's an elder, I think he still had it. He said, the joy will come back. And it will be greater if you allow yourself to feel the grief. When the joy comes back, it will be much greater than any joy you've ever had, because you've expanded yourself emotionally. I think that's what you've done. And, you know, be present, give your time, and use whatever skill you have to help people through the experiences. A lot of times when I'm with clients, that's all I can do. You know, I don't have the solutions to a lot of people's problems, but I can be there. I can give them my time. Be present. Okay, was another question back here? Yeah.
Yes, last year you talked about healing, and you said that your people would cook 3 vegetables together.
Oh, yeah.
That would be their antibiotic. What
Mhm.
are those 3 vegetables?
Potatoes, carrots, and celery.
Thank you.
That's what Cherokee's boiled, and then just drink the water. You know, water is our first medicine, and food is our second medicine. And the herbal medicines, those are our third medicine. The body is amazing in its ability to heal. And that ability to heal, I think, magnifies when you're fasting. And sometimes giving the body just a little bit. Here's another important sentence. The body can do a lot with a little. The body can do a lot of healing with a little medicine if it's the medicine you need at the time. You know, and sometimes the medicine is just water. Sometimes it's good food. Or sometimes it's an herbal, it's an herbal remedy. When I was blessed at the UBC, when I was working at UBC the last 10 years, as was mentioned, I got to be the director of the Institute of Aboriginal Health, and I got to have an experimental garden at UBC Farm. And in that experimental garden, I had 68 medicines, different medicines that people, you know, if there's one in there that you need and you give to your body, it can do a lot of healing. And remember that the body always heals itself. We can give it water, we can give it medicine to help it heal itself, but it heals itself. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, I went through chemo and radiation, but I also went through ceremony and herbal medicines. I went through a number of different ceremonial processes, each of which helped me. And but when I was at UBC, so I got to do some volunteer work at the Vancouver General Hospital Cancer Clinic called Aspire Health, which is alternative care cancer. that integrates with chemo and radiation if you have to go through chemo and radiation. But you can go to this place and it's about foods, it's about medicines, it's about meditation, it's about reducing stress. And one interesting case of a woman who had cancer, an elder woman had cancer, and she wasn't feeling that great, and she went through some tests, and the doctor found out she had not only cancer, but very severe cancer, and they called the family and said, should we tell her? Ask her children, you want your mother to know, should we bring her in and tell her she has cancer? They said, no, let's wait till she gets a little worse. A year later, she was cancer-free. Her body healed itself. Your body heals itself. Now, I wouldn't advise, if you get cancer, you need treatment. I'm not saying don't go to treatment. I know a number of people right now who are not going to treatment, and they, I don't know. I think you have to be practical when it comes to your health. You have to use everything you can. I think everybody has a right to medicine. Everybody has a right to healing. I'm just saying, the point I was trying to make there is that the body heals itself. And you can help your body heal itself by giving it good water, good food, and herbal medicines if you need them. I was discussing with Charles or someone here this morning about how in medical textbooks 100 years ago, herbal medicines was part of the medical school. That's been eliminated because of pharmaceuticals. And the most often mentioned medicine in the medical school textbooks before pharmacology took over was sage. Sage is a very healing plant. It's good for almost everything. So if you're doing a healing fast, if you come to a healing time, and one of the times that you come to a healing time is when you get sick. And when you get sick, it's like a ceremonial time. And my grandmother, my father's mother, said, there's two, in her way of looking at things, two kinds of sickness. There's big sickness and little sickness. Big sickness is like cancer and diabetes. Little sickness is like cold and flus. And she said, if you pay enough attention to the little sickness, you might not need the big sickness. Because sickness has come to teach us things. And so let's say you get a cold or a flu. Got two choices. Oh man, I got to be to work. Contact C, 24 hours of relief. The body's healing process, when you get a cold or a flu, the house of your spirit is cleaning itself. The house of your spirit is sweeping the floor. Make some sage tea. Take time for yourself. I'm sick. I'm in a ceremonial time. Take the time to observe your body's illness as a ceremony of healing for itself. Take that good tea, sage. I don't usually talk too much about medicines publicly because there's a lot of medicines that have a counterpart that's not good and you have to really know what you're doing. But sage is pretty safe. And drink some sage and help your body to heal itself. Take the time to observe the illness. Allow yourself to be sick. Maybe you won't need the big ones. These days, I know things are busy. Maybe I'm coming here and I get a flu. What am I going to do? I want to keep going. I want to be here. I don't have a flu right now, but I'm just saying that sometimes we feel that we need to keep going, and so we don't observe the sickness. So what my grandmother said, as a more serious one comes. So next thing you know, you got a little pain here, you go to the doctor, oh, you got a kidney infection. Here's a prescription. Take it over to London Drugs, they give you some pills. There's some words on there so big you can't even read. It says, take 3 a day for 2 weeks. So you do that. What happens? The kidneys heal, the infection goes down. But what did you learn? That's why we're so lucky to have ceremony, where we can learn the reason of the illness. We can go to the elders and say, hey, I got a kidney infection. What's happening in my life? Am I out of balance? So I'm coming to my closing, and I was very happy when Mr. Sinclair said the word balance. His son was, I went to his son's PhD defense at UBC, Degon Sinclair. And Balance. Balance is a great achievement. It's one of the things fasting can help us with. Balance means we have something going on in our mind and our heart and in our body and in our spirit. Something happening there. In my teaching days, one of the things I used to do is I have the students make a medicine wheel, 4 parts, mind, body, heart, and spirit. Make a list of the 10 things you spend the most time doing and put them on this chart. Sometimes there's total blanks, nothing in the spirit, nothing in the emotional. Everything's mental or physical. You got to find that balance where you got something in each part of your being. So there's growth happening in each area of your body, each area of your being, your mind, your body, your heart, and your spirit. That's a great achievement. And that's the foundation for harmony. Harmony is when you have the balance, but the parts of yourself also get along. It means your heart gets along with your mind, and your body gets along with your spirit. Those are usually the 2 harmonies, or 2 places where there's disharmony. Sometimes the body wants to do something, but the spirit wants to do something else. Or the mind wants to do something, and the heart wants to do something else. Sometimes I have my clients sit down and have their heart write a letter to their mind, have their mind write back. What's happening there? What's the relationship between your heart and your mind? What's the relationship between your body and your spirit? To have harmony, that is a truly great achievement. Harmony is a very high state of being. But above that is peacefulness. We're talking about peacefulness. Michael was talking about that in his talk. How do we get to be a peaceful person? My Sweathouse teacher said balance is the foundation for harmony, and harmony is the foundation for being a peaceful person. You're at peace with yourself. You're at peace with others. That's kind of sometimes it's, in this day and age, it's very hard to be peaceful with others. There's such extreme views all the time. Harmony is a foundation for peacefulness, and peaceful is a foundation for something the best word in English probably is alignment. It means your being is straight. My uncle in Oklahoma talked about this, Uncle Elwood, harmony, alignment. One time he said to me, nephew, he said, you see those pictures of Native people a long time ago, they had a feather up behind their head? Why is that? Why did they have that there? I don't know, as a young boy. He said, they're showing you the straightness of their spine extended towards the Creator. They have alignment, and they're showing you they have a belief. They're aligned. That's that 4th stage, alignment. Balance, harmony, peacefulness, alignment, and then connection. To be connected. Be connected to creation. Be connected to the world around you. And to be aware of the world around you. One of the things I started at UBC was a youth program. I brought children in care to the farm. Children in care through VACFAS, Vancouver Aboriginal Child and Family Services. And we started a program. It's still going. It's been going about 15 years now. And the first thing I'd do with the children, I'd take them over to some juniper. I'd offer a little tobacco. So I was teaching about the tobacco offering. I'd take a little piece of juniper and I'd taste it. Of course, they all want to taste it. Can we do that? Yeah, but you have to do a tobacco offering. Okay, so now they're learning about the offering. They're learning about juniper. Of all the children that came to the program when I was directing it, which was about 300, not one child knew one tree. Not one child could identify one tree. I wanted them to know the trees. Juniper, cedar, pine, poplar, all the different trees we have at the farm, balsam, pine, and at least 1 or 2 medicines from each. So they would go around, and when they walk through life, they see the trees, they know which tree it is. And here's another big statement, another major sentence. That gives life meaning, and meaning brings health. Meaning brings health. One of the things each of us need to do in our life is find our altar, find our place of meaning. What means something to you? I told my girls, the first thing to do is drink water in the morning, and if you want to, you can face the east. Because to us, the east means a new light, new day, new life. So the directions, to have a directional understanding of the world and what those directions mean, that gives a meaning. Meaning brings health. So we have balance, harmony, peacefulness, alignment, straightness, trueness of being, and connectedness. So I have 2 minutes, and I'll share with you that when I moved to Vernon Reserve, I wanted to have a sweat. I'd had a sweat at my place before I moved there. But I knew I couldn't just move into a territory and build a sweat, so I was making a point that first year I lived there to meet the elders on the reserve. I had sweats and got to know them. And at the end of the year, I had a big dinner in the band hall and asked for permission to have a sweat in the territory, and they said, yeah, I could have a sweat. One of the elders I met was Old Man Pete. He's a character. He was a live wire. You knew he was in the room. There came a time when he passed on, and his wife called me and said, Lee, would you help on the funeral? I came to be a person in life that did those kinds of things. Birth, funerals, ceremonies, those kinds of ceremonies. Coming of age, that's a very important one. So I came down to her house. I just got back from the Yukon. I was really tired, but I said, okay, yeah, I'll come right down. So the front door of her house opened to the north. I went in the door of her house and I said, Josephine, what do you want me to do? How can I help? He said, Lee, the first thing you need to do is go out to the southwest corner of the house and build a fire, and people will see it, and they know Pete has passed on. They've been waiting. They'll start coming. So I went out of the northern door, facing the north, turned towards the west, to walk around the west side of their house and go down to the south and build a fire. But I heard people. I heard people crying. So I thought, I don't even want to look around this corner. I don't know who's here, and I don't want to disturb anything. Maybe they're already saying prayers. So I went back into the house. I said, Josephine, there's already people out there. She said, no, there's nobody out there. I said, I hear people crying. She said, you remember that Pete told you that he was connected to the eagles that are in the nest up there on the hill? Those are the eagles crying. The eagles were crying. He was connected to creation. An Indigenous person in their own territory that's connected to that territory, that's a powerful being. That's a person that can say something and creation will respond. He was connected to creation. When an eagle cries, it sounds just like a human. It sounds like a human being. They cried all during the wake. So that's a great achievement. And the point is, fasting at different times in your life in different ways can help you on that journey through balance, harmony, peacefulness, alignment, and connectedness. Try to get to that. Try to get to that before we pass on. 30 seconds over. All my relations.